As a dense winter fog rolled over the Donetsk region city of Pokrovsk, Russian forces began to move. For Moscow, the conditions seemed ideal. The thick haze promised concealment, protection from Ukrainian reconnaissance and FPV drones that normally dominate the battlefield. Under this cover, Russian units advanced, but the fog did not save them. Instead, Putin's troops entered the mist and never emerged. What awaited them was a devastating outcome they could not see, anticipate, or escape. On February 1st, reporting revealed how Ukrainian forces annihilated 2 major Russian assault attempts in the Pokrovsk sector on the same day. While the full details unfold over time, the headlines alone tell the story. Several Russian platoons, many using vehicles, attempted to push into Pokrovsk and the nearby settlement of Hryshyn under the cover of bleak winter fog. Rather than enabling infiltration, the fog became the backdrop for a massacre that wiped out nearly 100 Russian soldiers and destroyed multiple vehicles. 2 Ukrainian formations played the primary role in stopping the attack. One of them was the Spartan Brigade of Ukraine's National Guard. Shortly after the fighting ended, the brigade released a statement describing the outcome. According to the Spartans, they and neighboring units repelled the assault and destroyed almost 4 Russian platoons in a single day. Around 90 Russian assault troops were committed to the operation, and approximately 80 of them were killed. The Spartans did not operate alone. They coordinated closely with the Birds of Magyar, an elite Ukrainian drone unit led by Robert Brovdy. Despite the fog, Ukrainian drone operators tracked Russian movements as they attempted to hide, guiding strikes with deadly accuracy. The result was unavoidable: widespread destruction of the attacking force. Beyond the fatalities already reported, Ukrainian forces confirmed additional casualties. 2 Russian soldiers were wounded, and 2 others were captured alive. Russian equipment losses were also severe. 10 all-terrain vehicles were destroyed, along with 4 motorcycles and 6 civilian cars. These were not armored transports, but improvised vehicles pressed into combat service, a sign of the increasingly desperate nature of Russian assaults. The Spartans supported their claims with video evidence. A 2-minute compilation released online showed the aftermath from multiple angles. Some of the footage was too graphic to display, but what was visible left little doubt about the scale of the destruction. The video opens with a Russian vehicle erupting into flames against the stark white of the Ukrainian winter. The strike was almost certainly delivered by an FPV drone, and many more followed. Drone footage shows operators flying through thick gray fog, confirming destroyed vehicles and locking onto targets that barely had time to react. Explosives dropped from above detonated among Russian positions. Burned-out vehicles littered the terrain. Russian bodies lay motionless in thin layers of snow, a blunt reminder of the human cost of the assault and the fate awaiting many of the soldiers sent forward. One moment stands out in particular. A Russian soldier dressed in white camouflage tries to flee through a stand of trees as an FPV drone closes in behind him. He attempts to escape. He fails. The drone detonates. Another soldier is killed on a night that claimed more than 80 lives. This is the war Vladimir Putin began. And in the Pokrovsk direction, Ukrainian forces have repeatedly proven their ability to dismantle Russia's increasingly improvised and fragmented assaults. Fog or no fog, the destruction did not stop there. On the same day, the Spartan Brigade detailed its success. Ukraine's 7th Airborne Assault Corps reported the defeat of a Russian mechanized assault on the village of Hryshyn. There are clear reasons why Moscow is focused on this settlement. Hryshyn lies northwest of Pokrovsk, making it a potential staging point for attacks from a new direction. It also serves as a critical logistics hub for Ukrainian forces operating north of Pokrovsk. If Russia were to capture it, Ukraine's supply routes into the area would be severely threatened. Russian command reportedly set a deadline of January 1st to seize the village. That deadline has passed, and Russia remains no closer to taking Hryshyn than it was months earlier. Open terrain between Hryshyn and Pokrovsk has proven especially deadly for Russian troops. With minimal cover and few settlements to hide in, soldiers have been forced to cross wide open ground under constant observation and fire. That terrain has become a graveyard. According to the 7th Airborne Assault Corps, Ukrainian forces repelled the mechanized assault, destroying armored vehicles and killing more than 10 Russian soldiers. Those losses, combined with the casualties inflicted by the Spartan Brigade, brought Russia's total losses from the January 31st assaults to well over 90 troops. The Corps noted that the assault showed signs of desperation. Russian forces attempted to accelerate their offensive using armored vehicles after infiltration tactics failed. Ukrainian units detected the movement early. The 155th Separate Mechanized Brigade, along with other formations, stopped the attack on the outskirts of Hryshyn and along the approaches to the village. Surviving Russian troops fled, abandoning destroyed vehicles and fallen comrades. January as a whole has been disastrous for Russia's efforts to seize Pokrovsk. Assault after assault has been stopped. According to Ukrainian military data, by February 1st, Ukrainian forces had repelled roughly 80 Russian attacks in the Pokrovsk direction since the start of the year. Pokrovsk, Hryshyn, Myrnorad, Yampil, each has come under repeated pressure, and each assault has been turned back. Again and again, Russian forces attack. Each time, Ukrainian defenses respond. The result is clear. Pokrovsk remains under Ukrainian control, along with key surrounding settlements. This carries enormous strategic significance. Moscow has set a deadline of April 2026 to capture the Donbas region. Pokrovsk lies at the heart of that objective. It is now February, and the city still stands. Given the defensive belt of fortified cities that remains beyond Pokrovsk, the deadline appears increasingly unrealistic. Russia once claimed it had captured Pokrovsk late last year, attempting to use that claim as leverage ahead of talks. The claim was false. Far from falling, Pokrovsk has become a lethal trap, a place where Russian troops are sent and rarely return. Ukrainian commanders believe that if current trends continue, Russian forces in the area may be exhausted by spring. According to senior Ukrainian leadership, Russian assaults are weakening, and the city remains far from capture despite Moscow's claims. What January 31st demonstrated is not an anomaly, but a pattern. Russia launches assaults. Ukraine detects them early and destroys them, often before the attackers reach their objectives. Even when fog or winter weather provides brief advantages, those gains are short-lived. Ukrainian defenses adapt, and Russian forces pay the price. For now, the front around Pokrovsk remains locked in stalemate, one reinforced every time another Russian assault is wiped out before it can succeed. January 31st was not an isolated disaster for Russian forces. It was simply the latest example of a pattern that has repeated itself again and again in the Pokrovsk direction. For months, Russian command has attempted to grind forward using near-identical tactics. Assault units are formed, they are sent forward in waves, and almost every time Ukrainian forces detect them early and destroy them long before they reach their objectives. This reality was laid out bluntly by Ukrainian Brigadier General Ole Apostol during a January 22nd interview with Novinarnya, recorded the previous month. According to Apostol, Ukrainian troops prevail in roughly 90% of close-range engagements with Russian forces near Pokrovsk. That statistic is devastating for Moscow, and even more revealing when placed in context. Most Russian units never even make it to close combat. They are eliminated at a distance, destroyed by drones, artillery, and precision-guided strikes before they can engage Ukrainian positions directly. The 90% figure only applies to the rare cases where Russian troops survive long enough to reach Ukrainian lines at all. When those breakthroughs do occur, the outcome rarely changes. Russian soldiers who manage to push through the layered defenses around Pokrovsk tend to be destroyed shortly afterward. They simply survive longer than those killed earlier in the assault, not because their chances improve, but because they are eliminated later in the process. Ukrainian defenses in the sector are built in depth. Reconnaissance drones monitor movement constantly. FPV units stand ready to strike vehicles and infantry the moment they are identified. Artillery units are pre-registered on likely approach routes. When Russian troops advance, they move through a gauntlet that leaves little room for survival. This layered system has proven brutally effective. Russian forces have increasingly resorted to improvised methods to compensate. Civilian vehicles, motorcycles, and lightly armored transports are now routinely used in assaults. These platforms offer speed, but virtually no protection. Once detected, they are destroyed almost immediately. The result is a steady erosion of Russian manpower. Ukrainian commanders report that Russian units in the Pokrovsk direction are being depleted faster than they can be replaced. Assault groups arrive under strength. Training levels vary widely. Coordination between units is inconsistent. In many cases, troops are sent forward with minimal preparation and little understanding of the terrain they are entering. Despite these losses, Russian command continues to push. The reason is strategic pressure. Pokrovsk sits at a critical junction of roads and supply routes in eastern Ukraine. Capturing it would open pathways toward deeper Ukrainian defenses and bring Moscow closer to its stated goal of seizing the remaining parts of Donetsk Oblast. But that objective remains far out of reach. Ukrainian officials have stated that Russia faces a hardened defensive belt beyond Pokrovsk, a chain of fortified cities designed specifically to absorb and break large-scale assaults. Even if Pokrovsk were somehow taken, Russian forces would still face multiple layers of prepared defenses ahead. That reality makes the cost of current assaults even more difficult to justify. January alone demonstrated the imbalance. By early February, Ukrainian forces had repelled roughly 80 Russian attacks in the Pokrovsk direction since the start of the year. Each failed assault leaves behind destroyed equipment, dead soldiers, and weakened units that must be rebuilt from scratch. Russian attempts to accelerate progress through mechanized assaults have fared no better. When armored vehicles appear, Ukrainian reconnaissance identifies them quickly. Anti-tank weapons, drones, and artillery are brought to bear. Vehicles are destroyed. Survivors retreat if they can. Weather conditions have not changed the outcome. Fog, snow, and poor visibility have occasionally limited Ukrainian drone operations, but they have also slowed Russian movement and disrupted coordination. When visibility drops, Russian units struggle to maintain formation, navigate terrain, and react to sudden strikes. Ukrainian forces adapt, relying on pre-planned fire zones and overlapping observation methods. Each attempted breakthrough ends the same way. According to Ukrainian assessments, Russian forces around Pokrovsk are showing signs of operational exhaustion. Assault tempo fluctuates, units rotate more frequently, equipment quality continues to decline. These are not signs of momentum, they are indicators of strain. For Ukraine, the objective remains clear: hold Pokrovsk, inflict maximum losses, and deny Russia any meaningful breakthrough. So far, that objective has been met. Despite months of pressure, Pokrovsk remains under Ukrainian control. Key surrounding settlements continue to hold. Russian deadlines have come and gone, claims of capture have proven false, and each failed assault further undermines Moscow's ability to sustain the fight in this sector. What January 31st revealed was not a turning point, but confirmation. The battlefield around Pokrovsk has become a trap, one that Russian forces continue to enter, and from which many do not return. As winter grinds on, the pattern shows no sign of changing. Russia attacks, Ukraine detects, Ukraine destroys, and Pokrovsk still stands. What January 31st demonstrated is not an anomaly, but a pattern. Russia launches assaults. Ukraine detects them early and destroys them, often before the attackers reach their objectives. Even when fog or winter weather provides brief advantages, those gains are short-lived. Ukrainian defenses adapt, and Russian forces pay the price. For now, the front around Pokrovsk remains locked in stalemate, one reinforced every time another Russian assault is wiped out before it can succeed.